Welcome, and thank you for being here. You're listening to History for Sleep, a quiet place where the past unfolds slowly, thoughtfully, and without urgency. Here, we explore the forgotten edges of human knowledge, the moments where history, mystery, and meaning quietly overlap. These stories aren't meant to rush you. They're meant to ease the mind, spark curiosity, and gently guide you toward rest. Take a deep breath. Let the day loosen its grip. Tonight, we're asking a question that has lingered for centuries, often whispered, rarely examined carefully. What if ancient prophecy truly guided modern technological breakthroughs? Not by magic, not by coincidence, but through patterns, memory, and ideas preserved far longer than we usually admit. To modern eyes, prophecy feels incompatible with science. One belongs to faith, myth, and imagination. The other to data, equations, and proof. But to ancient civilizations, there was no such divide. Knowledge was knowledge, and the future was not something unknown, it was something anticipated. Ancient prophecies were not always predictions of specific inventions or events. More often they described conditions, states of the world, turning points, moments when humanity would cross unseen thresholds. And across history, many of those descriptions appear unsettlingly familiar. Texts from ancient Greece speak of tools that would move without hands. Indian epics describe flying machines guided by unseen forces. Medieval prophecies mention voices carried through the air, invisible networks, and light replacing fire. For centuries, these passages were dismissed as metaphor, until technology caught up. This raises an uncomfortable question. Did ancient people imagine these futures? Or did they inherit fragments of knowledge far older than themselves? To explore this, we must first understand what prophecy meant in the ancient world. Prophecy was not fortune-telling. It was pattern recognition. Ancient scholars watched cycles of nature, of empires, of human behavior. They noticed that progress often followed collapse, that innovation surged after crisis, that certain discoveries appeared only when societies reached specific conditions. Prophets were often astronomers, philosophers, engineers. They studied the sky not just to worship it, but to understand order. If the universe followed laws, then history must as well. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests recorded thousands of years of observations, planetary movements, eclipses, floods, plagues, and political upheavals. Over time, they noticed something remarkable. When certain conditions aligned, change followed. Not random change, transformational change. The same principle underlies modern technological revolutions. The printing press did not appear randomly. Electricity did not emerge in isolation. Computers arose only when mathematics, materials, and need converged. Ancient prophecies often describe these convergence points, moments when humanity would gain tools that fundamentally altered existence. The future, to them, was conditional. If humanity reached this point, then this would follow. Some historians suggest that what we call prophecy was actually long-range forecasting, a blend of philosophy, observation, and inherited memory. Knowledge passed forward in symbolic language, because symbols survive longer than instructions. During the fall of ancient libraries, Alexandria most famously, enormous amounts of technical knowledge were lost. But not all of it disappeared. Some of it was hidden, encoded, preserved through allegory, myth, and prophecy. Alchemy, for example, is often dismissed as mystical nonsense. But many alchemical texts describe processes that resemble modern chemistry, metallurgy, and even atomic theory, expressed symbolically because direct explanation would have been meaningless or dangerous. The same may be true of prophetic texts. They weren't instructions for building machines. They were signposts, telling future generations what kinds of power would eventually exist, and what consequences would follow. As technology advanced, these old descriptions began to feel less fantastical. Invisible forces moving objects, instant communication across distance. artificial minds assisting human thought. What once sounded divine now sounds technical. Which brings us to a controversial idea. That ancient prophecies did not predict technology, but influenced it. That engineers, scientists, and thinkers, consciously or unconsciously, were inspired by visions preserved across centuries. Stories shape imagination. Imagination shapes invention. And invention reshapes reality. As you rest now, consider this gently. Every breakthrough begins as an idea. And ideas do not emerge from nothing. They echo. Across cultures and centuries, certain visions return again and again. They do not appear as blueprints. They appear as images. Images of light without flame. Voices traveling through empty space. Objects moving with no visible force. Knowledge accessed instantly without distance. To ancient people, these images could only be described as divine or mystical. To us, they sound like technology. One of the earliest examples comes from ancient Greece. In the writings attributed to Hero of Alexandria, we find descriptions of self-moving machines, doors that opened on their own, devices powered by air, steam, and pressure. These were not myths. They were demonstrations. Hero lived nearly 2,000 years ago. His work suggests that mechanical automation was already imagined, even achieved, long before the industrial age. But the world around him was not ready. The knowledge faded, yet the idea survived. Centuries later, Renaissance engineers rediscovered similar principles. Leonardo da Vinci sketched machines that closely resemble modern helicopters, tanks, and robotic systems. He claimed inspiration from ancient texts, not divine revelation, but inherited imagination. In India, ancient epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana describe flying vehicles, vimanas, capable of traveling vast distances, changing direction suddenly, and emitting blinding light. Scholars debate whether these passages are symbolic, exaggerated, or remnants of lost technological concepts. Mainstream historians argue they are mythological. Yet engineers have noted that some descriptions resemble propulsion systems, navigation controls, and energy sources, written in the language available at the time. The question is not whether these machines existed. The question is why so many cultures imagine similar futures. In medieval Europe, prophetic writings described a world where iron birds filled the skies, thinking machines assisted humans, and invisible webs connected all people. At the time, these ideas were absurd. Today they are ordinary. This pattern continues into more recent history. In the late 1800s, Nikola Tesla spoke openly about wireless energy transmission, global communication networks, and autonomous machines. He referenced ancient wisdom, not superstition, but forgotten understanding. Tesla believed humanity repeatedly rediscovered the same truths, losing them during periods of collapse, then finding them again when conditions allowed. This aligns with a cyclical view of history. Progress is not linear, it is rhythmic. Ancient prophecies may have emerged during peaks, moments when humanity briefly touched advanced understanding before falling back. What survived were not the tools, but the visions. The warnings are just as important. Many prophecies that describe powerful tools also describe imbalance, loss of connection, dependence on artificial systems, knowledge outpacing wisdom. These are not mystical fears. They are ethical ones. Technology amplifies intention. Ancient prophets understood this. They did not celebrate progress blindly. They cautioned against forgetting the human cost. Some texts warn that humanity would hear all voices but understand none. Others describe a time when knowledge spreads faster than meaning. These lines resonate strongly in the digital age, which leads some thinkers to suggest a deeper idea. That prophecy did not merely anticipate technology. It attempted to prepare humanity for it, by embedding ethical questions inside memorable stories, by encoding caution alongside wonder. Modern science often separates invention from philosophy. Ancient knowledge did not. To invent without reflection was dangerous. As you rest now, notice how calm this realization feels. Humanity has always imagined the future, always warned itself, always forgotten, and always rediscovered. There is a quieter thread running beneath these stories, one that does not speak of sudden revelation, but of preservation. Across history, whenever a civilization collapsed, something curious happened. Practical knowledge disappeared quickly, tools broke, infrastructure failed, expertise scattered. But symbolic knowledge endured. Stories survived. Prophecies survived. Myths survived. They were light enough to carry when everything else was lost. Some researchers believe this was intentional. That advanced understanding, when it existed, was deliberately encoded into narrative, not because it was mystical, but because narrative is resilient. A machine can be destroyed. A book can burn. But a story once shared can travel centuries unchanged in spirit. Consider how often ancient prophecies describe not how something works, but what it feels like when it exists. A world where distance collapses. A world where time accelerates. A world where humanity speaks constantly yet listens less. These are experiential truths. And experience is universal. In this view, prophecy is not a message from the gods. It is a message from the past. A way of saying, we were here before. This is what happens next. There is a controversial hypothesis, not accepted by mainstream historians but persistent, that humanity may have reached advanced technological stages before recorded history. That some ancient civilizations developed forms of science we no longer recognize. When they fell, the knowledge fragmented. What remained were warnings. Flood myths appear across nearly every ancient culture. Some describe not just destruction but loss of knowledge. Cities swallowed, wisdom erased. Modern geology confirms massive flood events in prehistory. What if these stories were not just about survival, but about restarting civilization? In that case, prophecy becomes continuity, a bridge across catastrophe. This may explain why certain technological ideas reappear independently across cultures. Electricity, automation, flight, artificial intelligence, each time framed as destiny. The future feels familiar because it has been imagined before. Even modern science fiction often mirrors ancient prophecy. Writers describe futures that ancient texts hinted at, not because they copied them directly, but because they draw from the same human intuition. That progress changes us faster than we can adapt. That power without restraint destabilizes societies. That tools reshape values. Ancient prophecy did not try to stop progress. It tried to slow it, to add reflection, to ensure humanity did not outrun itself. As technology advanced in the modern era, many inventors were deeply philosophical. They read ancient texts. They questioned consequences. Over time, efficiency replaced contemplation, and the warnings grew quieter. Yet they remain, encoded in old languages, waiting to be reread. As you drift closer to rest, let this idea settle gently. The future has never arrived suddenly. It has always been approaching, step by step, generation by generation. Ancient prophecy may not have guided technology directly, but it shaped the imagination that made technology inevitable. And imagination, once planted, grows on its own. As the night deepens, the question softens. What if ancient prophecy did not guide technology with intention, but with memory? Human beings have always looked forward by looking back. Every generation inherits fragments, stories half understood, warnings half remembered, dreams expressed in the only language available at the time. Ancient prophets did not need to know what a computer was to sense that one day knowledge would move faster than wisdom. They did not need to imagine satellites to understand that distance would eventually lose meaning. They did not need circuits or code to feel that humanity would one day build minds outside itself, and struggle with what that meant. These insights did not require advanced machines. They required attention. Ancient societies paid attention to cycles, not just in nature but in human behavior. ambition rising, comfort breeding complacency, complexity creating fragility. Technology accelerates these cycles. It does not create them. In that sense, prophecy was never about gadgets or breakthroughs. It was about consequences. Every powerful tool arrives with a choice. Ancient texts often end not with triumph, but with caution. A reminder that knowledge expands faster than character. That invention outruns reflection. That humanity must decide again and again how it uses what it discovers. This is why prophecy feels relevant now. Not because the ancients predicted smartphones or artificial intelligence, but because they predicted us. Our curiosity, our impatience, our brilliance, our tendency to forget lessons once survival feels secure. Modern technology is not proof that prophecy was right. It is proof that humanity repeats itself. And repetition was the ancients' greatest teacher. As you rest, imagine all of human history as a long conversation, whispered across generations, each era adding a line. Each collapse erasing some words. Each rebirth picking up the thread again. Prophecy was never the voice of destiny. It was the echo of experience, a way of saying, we have been here before. Move carefully. There is comfort in this. It means humanity is not lost. It is learning, slowly, imperfectly, cyclically. And you are part of that long pattern. As sleep draws closer, let the question drift away. It does not need an answer tonight. Some mysteries are meant to be held gently, not solved. Thank you for spending this quiet time with History for Sleep. If these stories bring you calm, let them fade naturally into rest. The past will remain where it always has been, waiting, and the future will arrive, one careful step at a time.